Why won't you tell me?
Questioned Kaminari, following you around his apartment while you paced with heavy steps.
You've been showing signs lately.
Signs? You retorted with a derogatory smirk. Me being scared of storms is a sign?
No, I mean... Monage.
Kaminari. You interrupted, your tone stern. I messed up yesterday. Tell that to the head agent. He watched as you slumped onto one of his armchairs in the large space, looking away from him while you stared out from one of the large windows overlooking part of Endor docks. The morning was calm while you slept, but as soon as you woke, he found you distant, almost immediately. You refused to say a word, not a peep, as if you were still mute. And then, this argument, empty of reason.
I'm going to report all that I know from last night,
explained Kaminari, soft and calm.
And I know you didn't mess up, but you have to tell me these things about you. Things that I still have no clue about.
It's better you didn't know, you replied, still with your eyes away from his.
Why? I can't help you if you keep blocking me out.
Then take me back to the commission. Put me under arrest. What good am I if I'm not helping your case?
You're a good person, I know you are,
yelled Kaminari in retaliation, his frustration growing. How do you know?
You took that blow for me back when we first met. Not any villain would do that. You may have your reasons, but that shows me that you are willing to put yourself on the line when it counts. And here I am, trying to understand you outside of the fame and the secrecy, and you...
Kaminari stopped himself, holding his tongue while he stared at your upsetment, seeing the glint of tears that forced their way in the corner of your angry eyes. He could see you holding back before he was about to spill, taking a deep breath to calm his nerves.
You told me back at that golf range
Putt
that you wanted to make amends. Why wouldn't you let me help you do that?
You looked into Kaminari's eyes, filled with confusion and anger, while the frustration in his voice was evident. Of course, anyone who would be treated this way would have every right to feel these waves of emotions. But this was your life. A life shouldered with the haunting memories of your actions and of the people you surrounded yourself with. At the time, you thought nothing of it. But now, these memories were not even worthy for someone like Kaminari to hear. They're not yours to shoulder, you answered. And I'm more afraid of you getting involved further in the matter.
What do you mean? I'm already involved,
explained Kaminari.
I know enough to understand that you're trying to stop the front and that this general is someone to be feared.
But you don't know the implications of knowing her. I don't want you to get hurt.
So it's a she?
He asked, only earning an exasperated sigh from you. Oh, I've said too much, you mumbled under your breath, turning your eye away from him once more. You held back the tears that you felt pricked your eyes, spotting the murkiness cloud your vision a little. You rubbed your eyes in an attempt to rid them, but they only continued to spill. Kaminari hesitated with his next few thoughts, eyeing your expression and the cross look on your face.
Speaking of which, aside from all of this, there was something else that bothered me.
He started, keeping an eye on your reaction.
Last night, you wouldn't say a word. Or you couldn't. Can you tell me what that was about?
You bit your lip, hoping the sharp pain would hold off the tears that spilled from your eyes. Every word he spoke felt like a knife in your chest. You recalled last night, almost vividly, innocently writing those words in paper. The fear returned like it did long ago. You turned your eye away from Kaminari, knowing that the overwhelming sadness rippled under your skin.
Are you sick?
He asked.
No,
You whispered.
But last night...
forget last night. I was a kid. I didn't know any better.
That's not true.
Will you stop?
You turned to face him, your eyes cross in your anger now swelling inside, replacing the pain and guilt.
Stop the questions.
Kaminari stared into your eyes, fueled by hurt and anger, as if he had done an injustice. Confused by your sudden outburst, he slowly approached you, his hand out to reach yours, until you violently pulled it away.
Just go.
You ordered.
Leave me under house arrest and go do your job.
You turned your back on him, your eyes now staring out towards the docks, watching boats in the distance. Kaminari said nothing. You heard nothing before the sound of footsteps made their way towards the sliding front door, shutting in the empty apartment. You held onto your arms, trying to comfort yourself, before you sank into one of his chairs, head on your lap, silently weeping. Kaminari made his way to his car, seating himself in the driver's seat before he turned the ignition. He was silent, still processing your reaction and how distressed you were with him. He sighed heavily in exasperation, recalling his treatment of the situation beforehand when he slammed his palms into his driving wheel.
Damn it.
He cursed under his breath.
Hello? Hey, Kaminari. Catch you at a bad time?
Asked Sero on the other line. Kaminari eyed his front door, still his mind on you.
No. Was about to head to the Public Hero Commission building. I need to talk with you about a few things first. Meet me in the city's park in half an hour.
Kaminari thought about his request for a moment. He hadn't heard anything from Sero since the mission last night, recalling his sudden leave of absence. Perhaps something had happened during all the mania, maybe another clue in this mess of a situation.
I can be there in 20 if you can.
Advised Kaminari.
No rush, man. But yeah, gotta talk.
Kaminari pulled his car out before taking it from the docks, heading straight into Musutafu. If he wasn't going to get to the bottom of this one way, he hoped he could find success through other means instead, even if that meant not involving you in the process. Besides, there was a lot he and Sarah needed to talk about, he thought. Hours had passed since the argument, and you had filled your time reading books for who knew how many rounds you had given them the light of day. However, none of them took your thoughts away from Kaminari's concern. Yes, you lashed out violently at any mention of your past, a thing you had tried to bury many times before, and thought had succeeded. Yet the events of last night, of your fears, your illness, your childish reactions to everything Kaminari was able. It felt hurtful. The guilt returned knowing of your spiteful tone, and yet you heard nothing from Kaminari. He only left you alone. The thought of this morning replayed in your mind like a broken record, as cliché as it felt. It only made that knife sink deeper in your chest. One made by your own doing. You knew Kaminari was right, that you had to tell him one day why you did what you did, with the secrets, the charade, and your insistent need to run away. The pain of knowing how many souls you had harmed along the way seared in your mind, like a branding that had scarred the very nature of your life. You were a thing, a tool to be weaponized. Even so that whatever goals and purposes you thought were true were now a stain. This bodyguard business wouldn't last forever. The commission would have their way eventually, leaving you with nothing left. Leaving the warmth and comfort of Kaminari's hospitality, patience, and determination, despite his almost goofy and dorky disposition. Sunlight had now passed over the docks, casting a small shadow along Kaminari's apartment. The skylight itself created a spotlight of the sun's rays in the center of his lounge. Every day you've stayed here, you would often stand in the center of the skylight, pretending it to be center stage, twirling in its radiance. However, it burned your eyes today, still sore from the tears that sprung after Kaminari had left. A moment of clarity cleared your mind, as painful as it felt, before coming to the conclusion you needed for yourself and for the sake of Kaminari. A man who had offered you a home despite it being under the Commission's jurisdiction. A man who had only accepted you for who you were, regardless of the actions you had taken in your dreadful past. A man who comforted you, who tried every means to understand you.
Sorry, Roi de la Vie.
You whispered to yourself, swimming in your head from all of the painful thoughts. Glass shattered onto your skin while your arms shielded you from the shards that sprayed from the windows. It happened all so sudden, immediately taking to your feet to flee from the now destroyed window pane. Outside on the docks, a group of men stomped into the apartment, rushing towards you with open hands.
Grab them!
Yelled one before you felt their hands clutch onto your clothes and skin, grabbing hold of you while they slowly dragged you outside, fighting against your resistance.
Let go of me!
You yelled, slapping one in the face while kicking furiously in the air.
Quickly, before someone spots us!
Amongst the chaos, you pulled against their strength, your flailing arms and limbs swinging violently in the air, hoping they would hit anyone nearby. Mid-swing in your violent resistance, you elbowed your assailant in the gut, enough that winded him to release you from his hold. You didn't think, you just ran, scrambling back into the apartment while being chased by the men behind you. You huffed and panicked, pushing any large object in their way to slow them down, whether it were chairs, lamps, or anything of the sort. You only had eyes for the front sliding doors, crashing into it before you pulled against its weight to slide it open. The spill of the sunlight caught your eye first, blinding your already sore eyes from your tears until a silhouette painted against it, blocking your exit. The height caught you off guard, until you recognized the man's long top hat, and soon his mask. Once your eyes adjusted to the light.
Long time no see, Celine.
He cooed playfully before a glint of something caught your eye in his fingers. You heard the smirk in his voice, turning around to flee from him. But as if time had slowed, you felt your body pull into a void, sucked into the familiar glass marble before you crashed into its glass surface.
Let me go!
You yelled, your voice bouncing off from the walls, slamming your fists against the thick panes.
Laisse-moi sortir!
The large shadows skewed by the glass shifted every so often while you felt the inertia of Compress's movements holding onto the marble you now resided in.
So, Darby's little pet was right after all.
He commented, his voice loud yet muffled by the glass.
I should congratulate them on their deduction skills. It's not often we find defectors.
You still slammed your fist fervently against the glass, hoping that you could break through, though you knew it was futile to try.
Ne me remets pas!
Your cries were ignored when it suddenly went dark. Surrounded by the black, the sound of shifting and crunching glass echoed loudly before the rumble of a car's ignition reverberated through the glass space. You felt truly lost. How did they find you? What went wrong? In the dark, all of these questions found their way to your head, recalling the few times you had carefully managed to keep yourself under wraps. Hiding in plain sight, behind a moniker and a pre-generated face, making use of the fame to counter every move the Paranormal Liberation Front would possibly be able to exploit. Yet in turn, you exploited others in order to right your wrongs. And then there was Kaminari. The few times he had been warm and welcoming, the times he had shown his vulnerability and his strength, the times he had trusted in you by sharing a part of his life with his friends, all pro-heroes to a degree. Everything about Kaminari was like a home. Now only realizing this in the dark, you felt your tears return, trapped wherever Compress had held you captive. The car ride was a one-way trip, back to your past, back to the front, back to the cold table where the general would examine you again, and again, and again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, forgive me, Kaminari.
Kaminari stood by his warehouse apartment, staring blankly at the shattered glass and rummaged furniture inside. Police tape surrounded the building while crime scene investigators carefully traversed through the mess, numbering evidence after evidence of the now labeled crime scene. His meeting with Sarah was more a cross-reference of notes on a few topics of discussion. Sarah's current predicament with the thief as well as his encounter with Seek, at least before either of them would report it to their agencies and the commission. However, Kaminari's eyes loosely scanned the floor, eyeing the fallen armchair, the glass, and the open front door on the other side across the way. But you were nowhere to be found.
I'm Sorry, dude.
Slowly spoke Sero, eyeing Kaminari sadly and unsure what else to say.
No. Don't say that.
He retorted with a shaky voice.
This is my responsibility. I should have put the anklet back on. I didn't think.
He stared into the apartment, spotting the device still sitting on the corner of his kitchen counter inside. His body trembled with anger and regret, holding back tears of his own while he recollected the argument this morning.
Chargebolt, thank you for your cooperation in this matter,
spoke a fellow agent, her voice calming.
I'm sorry about—
No. What have you found?
Interrupted Kaminari, his eyes straining from spilling tears.
We've retrieved your surveillance footage for what it was able to capture and came across this during the invasion.
The agent held a pad, its screen revealing the front end of Kaminari's apartment while the event played. He watched you run through the floor towards the front door, disappearing out of frame until moments after, a familiar silhouette appeared, his top hat clearly recognizable.
Wait a minute! That's Mr. Compress!
He exclaimed, grabbing the pad from the agent, glaring at the screen.
When did you ever have a surveillance system installed?
Questioned Sero beside him.
We arranged it when we hired him for his services,
answered the agent.
It was precautionary.
Right. How did the front find out about this?
Questioned Kaminari, his voice shocked.
We're trying to determine that now,
immediately replied the agent, taking the pad back from Kaminari.
But it would be worth noting that we also spotted this on screen as well.
Taken back by the agent's words, she rewound the digital footage on screen, playing through the end of Kaminari's argument up until the moment the anklet began blinking a light.
Someone switched on the anklet's tracker.
A silence was shared between Kaminari and the agent. However, Sero looked between the two, confused on what revelation occurred amidst the conversation.
What's so strange about that?
He asked.
Kaminari would have wanted to know where they were. I didn't turn it on,
explained Kaminari.
Because that mechanism doesn't work unless the anklet was already attached to the person in question. Why would I turn on a tracker if it wasn't on their ankle?
A multitude of thoughts ran through his head, his eyes darting while he mulled over possible reasons before.
Who else knows?
He asked, his eyes stern while he stared at the agent.
Only the three of us?
She replied, a little taken back by his forwardness.
Good. Keep it that way. This may be an internal affair. I want you only to report to me about this and no one else. Got it?
But sir, I can't—
Please, just trust me,
reasoned Kaminari.
If Red Riot and Persona trust your judgment, then I do too.
He held his golden gaze on the agent before she nodded, taking the pad and leaving to continue the investigation. His thoughts mingled about, hoping it wasn't the worst-case scenario that he imagined in his head. By instinct, he reached for his phone, searching on speed dial to immediately bring it to his ear.
Wait, who are you calling?
Asked Sero, slightly anxious of Kaminari's sudden burst of energy.
Shinso, we need to speak with his partner about this. They've been following that guy's trail this whole time, right?
Explained Kaminari, still waiting.
Yeah, but how is that going to help?
To be frank, Kaminari didn't know how to answer that question. but his anger needed to be redirected somehow. He felt the guilt weigh heavily on his shoulders, imagining all of the scenarios that could have played out if only he had made these seemingly available decisions. But time was now against him.
What is it, Kaminari?
Spoke an exhausted tone on the other line.
Shinzo, we need to meet up. Sarah and I have some information that may be important to your case.
Explained Kaminari over the phone call, his eyes on Sero, only to notice his reaction slightly fervent to quiet Kaminari's request.
Really? Which one? I've got my hands full with the Tartarus case and Kitten.
Shinso's voice trailed at the thought, leaving the phone silent in Kaminari's ear.
Is it about that guy? Yeah, it's about that guy. Last night.
Confirmed Kaminari, his eyes still on Sero, who had now resigned to Kaminari's actions.
But something else has come up. I'm sure you're going to have a field day with this.
Thank you for tuning in to another fanfiction reading. If you enjoy what I do or would just prefer to fall asleep to my voice, please hit the like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to my channel. Please and thank you. I actually did quite enjoy this one. This was a long time coming in this timeline of Kaminari's. And I guess this was my first time writing something slightly angsty, or in a way, I guess. Or did I write something? I wrote more like slow burn heartbreaking before, but I don't think I wrote something as angsty as this. So I hope you enjoyed. I actually do feel that Kaminari deserves more of a spotlight sometimes. He has grown a special place in my headcanons and in my heart, really. So kind of like, I think I mentioned once before that I usually give a lot of the adventure to Sero, so I guess Kaminari gets this kind of piece of the pie, as you will think. But I do hope things do get a bit better. Part of me is a little excited to write the next installment of where Kaminari's going to end up, but we shall see down the line. But thank you for visiting. I hope to hear from you soon. Next we meet.